We will begin with Senator Wallace, who's followed by Senator Carignan, Senator Lang, and Senator Baker. Senator Wallace.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you again, Minister Nicholson. Minister, Bill S10, as I read it, is a focus bill that targets particular types of activity involving drugs, and I guess you've described it as the serious drug offenses. That would include trafficking, production, importation, and exportation of drugs. I know from the experience we went through with Bill C-15, there seemed to be some misunderstanding about whether or not the Bill C-15, and I would ask you the same question regarding Bill S-10, whether it applies at all to charges relating to possession of drugs. And certainly the response from certain people would seem to indicate they thought that it does relate to that. What is the answer to that, Minister?
Thank you for raising that with me, Senator Wallace, and thank you for all the efforts you have made on with respect to this bill and so many other justice initiatives that the government has brought forward. It's much appreciated by me and all of us within the government. Your comments are quite correct. It is not directed at the individual, for the most part, who becomes addicted, or the person who's experimenting, or the person with one or two plants. It's directed at traffickers. It's directed at organized crime. It's directed at those individuals who are bringing drugs into this country. These are not one-offs. I had law enforcement agencies who tell me these are very serious crime operations that are involved with these. And so, again, I appreciate those who want to be critics of this would prefer never to talk about that, but only talk about the misinformation that this is somehow targeted at people in possession of drugs. And I've made that clear on a number of occasions, and I appreciate there are some individuals or some groups who are not prepared to ever accept that. But I have reviewed this bill very carefully, and I know this bill very well, inasmuch as I've spent a considerable amount of time with this. This is directed at traffickers, the people who would sell drugs to children, the people who are bringing narcotics into this country, the people who are into the grow-op business for the purposes of trafficking. And I can appreciate there are some who don't want to hear that and won't accept that that's what the bill is about, but that is what this bill is about. But I appreciate the fact that people who do not want us to get tough on drugs in this country will either misrepresent or misconstrue what is in this, and I appreciate that says more about them than it does about this bill. But I was very careful, and the department and the government were very careful in the drafting of this.
Minister, when you refer to the trafficking provisions that are in the bill, perhaps you could explain, I know you touched on it in your comments, but you could explain the types of activities that the trafficking provisions relate to. And I won't go through the list of them. I prefer to hear it from you, but as you touched on, when the trafficking involves organized crime, violence, weapons, and so on. So it seems to me that even the trafficking provisions are targeted. They're not broad-based and blanketed, but they're very targeted. There's something specific you have in mind. And I wonder if you could describe to us in a little more detail how those trafficking provisions would impact our society.
Well, again, it is very specific, as you say, Senator, and in my opening remarks, I touched on some of the factors that where young people are involved. If you're doing this out near a schoolyard or on school property, these are the kinds of aggravating factors that we are asking the courts to take into consideration when these provisions kick in. With respect to the grow-ops, yes, we're of the opinion that if you're in the business of, 500, you have 1,000 plants, you are in the business of trafficking. That this isn't some sort of a cute little experiment that you have, that you're taking one for your own purposes or your own needs. You're into the business of trafficking. And I've been told by reliable authority when I've gone across this country that this is what organized crime is involved with. Gangs are involved with this kind of activity. And I can tell you it was made very clear to me that people who are in the business of bringing drugs into Canada or exporting drugs, you're looking at gangs, you're looking at organized crime. That is who is doing this. And so these are steps in the right direction. These are the kind of tools that law enforcement agencies and others are telling me we have to have. We have to send out the right message to people that if you get involved with this kind of activity, there are serious consequences, and this bill sends out that message. Thank you for that question.
One other quick question, if I could.
Very quick.
It will be quick. It will be quick. The bill introduces mandatory minimum sentences to the Act. Obviously, to the Act. Yes, yeah. And obviously that the introduction of mandatory minimums you would view, I'm sure, as a very significant element in this proposal. Why are mandatory minimums included in this bill? Why do you believe they're important?
I think they send out the correct message that if you decide that you would like to get into the production of marijuana, that there will be serious consequences. And if you bring drugs into this country, there are serious consequences to that. I think it's appropriate to send out that message. And we reduce the victimization, quite frankly, in our neighborhoods. When you get people off the schoolyard who are into the business of selling to children, the schools are better places in which children can go and be educated. If those individuals who've decided that that's a great place to sell drugs are off the street and in jail. So it helps on the victimization side. It helps people to feel better about their communities, that this kind of activity is not and will not be tolerated, that there are serious consequences, and in my opinion, this sends out the appropriate message that we want to send out.
Thank you, Senator Wallace. Senator Wallace.
I believe it does.
Yes.
And I've been told that, Senator, that if you want to disrupt these gangs, get them off the street. Make sure that they are not in a position to continue to conduct this kind of business.
Thank you. I'm trying to give everybody a fair chance here. Alors, on passe maintenant au sénateur Carignan.
We'll move now to Senator Carignan, followed by Senators Langbaker and Runciman. Senator Carignan, welcome, Minister. Welcome to our committee. It's always a pleasure to hear you speak. We're dealing with the bill that deals with mandatory penalties. But all of that is part of the national anti-drug strategy in Canada, which is much broader in itself. Can you speak to the overall strategy? And what part does this particular bill play in the overall drug strategy in Canada?
Part, Senator, but it is one part of the National Anti-Drug Strategy, and I believe that you're going to hear witnesses, I think, as early as tomorrow that are going to touch on a number of different aspects of this. I mean, we want to work with young people, get the message out there that drugs is a bad idea to get involved with. We want to do what we can in terms of providing deterrence for individuals, giving them assistance, getting the message out there that we're concerned about them and we want them to not get involved with this business and lead a life that can lead to their own personal destruction. And so this is one component of this. This is one of the reasons why I'm a supporter of the Aboriginal Justice Strategy. It uses a number of different methods to try and work with people to assist them. I've been a supporter of the drug courts. They're not everywhere in Canada, but they are another tool that the individual who unfortunately has become addicted or has become a problem and wants to change, they have an opportunity to change their lifestyle. So again, it's all part of the process because ultimately we all have a stake in making sure that an individual who gets involved with this business gets out of the business here, that it's better for them, it's better for their families, it's better for society. And so a comprehensive approach like the one that we have under the National Anti-Drug Strategy, as we have under the Aboriginal Justice Strategy, as we have under the drug courts, the National Crime Prevention projects that we all have a stake in trying to get people out of this business of committing crimes in this country. And again, I'm very supportive of all those those measures, and I've had the opportunity to be at a number of different locations where people have successfully made applications that will assist them in particularly guiding young people to get involved with this kind of activity, to get them to stop or to lead productive lives. And so, yes, we all have a stake in this, and it has to be a complete approach, and I'm very pleased to be a part of that, and I'm very supportive of it.
I have one last question. Thank you. Section 8.1, or Clause 8.1, provides for a report to Parliament about a detailed examination and the consequences of the application of the law, particularly with respect to mandatory minimums. I am very impressed by the commitment that's made here in Clause 8.1. I believe that you would be able to make a report within 2 years about the benefits and of the minimum penalties is quite striking. What we've heard from the experts is it's quite difficult to measure the impact of minimum penalties. But of course, it has an impact, but to be able to measure it on a cost-benefit basis is somewhat difficult. Have you any idea about the type of study or analysis, or perhaps this is a more technical question that could be asked of your officials, but perhaps they could answer that if you cannot.
Time we analyze any changes that we have made and review them, again, this is all helpful. I mean, I make the point on many occasions that we have to be continuously looking at the provisions of the criminal code, some of which have not been changed since the 1890s. I always point out that some of they weren't new in the 1890s. They were a compilation at the time the first criminal code was put together in this country, that there is a benefit when we review these to see how these provisions work and see if they need updating. I mean, changes of technology are one aspect of this. I mean, in this area of drugs alone, I mean, I have people that I accept on good authority who tell me how sophisticated some of these operations are becoming, and how much money and that's involved. And we see around the world some of the challenges with respect to drugs. This is an international problem. So the face of the crime has changed over the years, and we want to make sure that we're up to date. I mean, in terms of what you would do, you'd probably want to hear from law enforcement agencies. I mean, I'm starting to hear back, for instance, our Tackling Violent Crime Act, that changes with respect to bail, with respect to people who are committing serious gun crimes, that this is helpful to law enforcement agencies to get some of these people off the street, so that they're not immediately after being accused of a serious gun crime, they're not back out on the street, back in the neighborhood. I have people telling me, say, yeah, this is a step in the right direction. And again, that particular clause, as I indicated, was added by the House of Commons last time, and again, in the effort to get this bill moved forward, okay, we'll put these provisions in, but again, they can be overall helpful in terms of trying to analyze where we are with these bills and what further improvements we need.
We'll put your name down for a second round, Senator, if you wish.
Followed by Senators Baker, Runciman, and Chaput.